Remember my fixing it video for the sorcerer? Well, I actually kind of have a different thought on that now, and I didn't think I'd be doing a different 2.0 version of that so soon, but I am, and if you're curious why and what the plans are, stay tuned. Alright, so a couple of things to address. One, I still do think the sorcerer needs a fix, and I actually do thank you guys all for bringing up some of the stuff about the spells known progression of the bard. I fully had no idea that the magical secrets were included in those 2 spells known. I saw the 2 spell bump. I always thought that was weird. And I was like, oh, that's cool. They just get more spells and then they get magical secrets on top of that. Turns out I was wrong. And I've been doing things wrong pretty much the whole time. But thanks to you guys and confirming that in D&D Beyond, I'm now aware. So I feel like my original point about following the bard's spell progression, we need to put that aside, because the reason the bards get so many spells is because of magical secrets. So to your point, if you remove the magical secrets, that puts you at 16 spells known as opposed to 15, and so that's a moot point. However, my mind was changed when this came out. Now, I want to point out that the idea of sorcerers getting sort of domain spells or special spells known or origin spells, whatever you want to call them, is not original. This actually happened, this is a tweet of mine, but when the Storm Sorcerer was released in playtest for the Unearthed Arcana for the Waterborne Adventures Unearthed Arcana, the Storm Sorcerer was pretty much exactly as it's published, except it had this: additional spells known per level. And you can see it had Fog Cloud, Thunderwave, Gust of Wind, Levitate, Call Lightning, Sleet Storm, Conjure Minor Elementals, Ice Storm, and Conjure Elemental. And it said, Conjure Minor Elementals, unless you gain the spell from another source, you can only summon Smoke, Steam, and Ice methods. And Conjure Elemental, unless you gain it from another source, you could only summon Air Elementals. So this was part of the original Unearthed Arcana for it when it was originally released, so they were thinking about it then. And for those of you who don't know, this was like maybe the third, or I think it was within the top, or one of the original 5 Unearthed Arcana ever released for 5th edition. So this is pretty old. And then we haven't had any new spells known pretty much for any classes now. I believe the Giant Soul Sorcerer has spells known, which was a recent Unearthed Arcana. And I believe Mike Merles has also stated that he is for spells known for new subclasses for the Sorcerer. So then we get this one, the Sorcerer and Warlock. I did a whole video on it. There'll be a link in the description if you want to see that. But what's important is that the Aberrant Mind Sorcerer got all of these. And unlike this one, where it got 2 spells, everything except for level 9, for 5th level spells, it only got 1. This one gets 2 spells every level for levels 1 through 5 of spells, which is very similar to domain spells for a cleric, circle spells for a druid, oath spells for a paladin. And then again, the new ranger subclasses only get 1 per level, but they get them as well, which is weird that the new ones get it and the old ones don't. And the fact that they only get 1 in every other class that gets something gets 2, but that's besides the point. We're not going to worry about that. So my point being, I think now my new philosophy is don't give sorcerers the bard's progression. Give them their own unique spells to their sorcerer's origin. And to their credit, Saiyan2356 on Twitter actually said, hey, I saw your video, I wanted to suggest this to you. I put out suggestions on Reddit. So I was going to do actually a whole video myself just covering what I think should be the new spells. But they already did it. So let's go ahead and look. So for Draconic Sorcerer, their suggestions are Chromatic Orb, Cause Fear, Dragon's Breath, Levitate, Fly, Fear, Leomund's Secret Chest, Elemental Bane, Legend Lore, and Control Winds. Now, I'll be honest with you, at this point, I have not gone through and combed through every single spell to think about it, but one of the things that I really enjoy about this is it does not specify a damage type, which is important because that was something I was looking at when I was originally going to do it. Do we give the dragon sorcerer a unique spell, something kind of themed to each element? But this actually covers a lot of it. Chromatic Orb covers a lot of damage types. Cause Fear fits the whole dragon frightful presence thing. Dragon's Breath, it seems like a no-brainer. Levitate and Fly, flying abilities, Fear, again, the dragons. The Secret Chest for, kind of keeping your horde there. Elemental Bane, another good one for being, elemental things for dragons. And then Legend Lore and Control Winds. Control Winds is the only one I'm not too certain about what I would put there. But as a 5th level spell, I'm not really sure. I like the idea of Legend Lore. I think that that's good because it builds into the lore of dragons and things. So I'm okay with this. Like I said, out of this one's, Control Winds might be one that I would swap out. Then we have Wild Magic Sorcerer. Chaos Bolt and Color Spray. Again, Chaos Bolt is the most chaotic of magic, so that makes sense. Enhance Ability, Enlarge, Reduce. Blink and Slow. Polymorph, Dimension Door, Dispel Evil and Good, and Skill Empowerment. So it's interesting that I like some of, you've got some of these. Basically, I feel like a Wild Magic Sorcerer should be doing things that are sort of based on chance, right? You've got your Color Spray, which is kind of, you're rolling hit dice to see. Chaos Bolt is chaotic magic. Blink, I think, is a good one. Enhance Ability, Enlarge, Reduce. And Enlarge, Reduce, I think, kind of makes sense because it fits that kind of like, whoa, we're getting bigger, smaller, kind of a face style thing. I might have gone with Mirror Image because Mirror Image is sort of, or Blur, because those are sort of like mischance, you're taking a chance kind of a thing. It's a little chaotic. Polymorph makes sense. Dimension Door is just a good spell. Dispel Evil and Good, not too sure about that. And Skill Empowerment, I hate as a spell, so I would never give anybody that. I would probably throw in Mislead is a pretty good spell that I like as a 5th level spell. So that would be one that I would add in. I'm not sure. I mean, you could keep Dispel Evil and Good, but I think Mislead is a good spell, and I don't believe that's on the Sorcerer spell list regularly. So that would be a good one. Divine Soul, we've got a pretty standard one here. Choose a Cleric Domain. Gain those spells upon reaching the appropriate level. And that sort of makes sense, right? Because a cleric, Divine Soul Sorcerer has like a weird thing, right? Where they get, they kind of choose a spell when they choose an alignment kind of a thing at the first level. So this I like this. Choose a Cleric Domain. Because that's pretty good because the Cleric Domains are pretty diverse. So depending on the domain you choose, would give you some pretty diverse options, right? Like if you want to be a healer, choose Life Domain, you're going to get all of those spells. Now remember, Divine Soul is also going to get access to the Cleric spell list pretty much as well. So it may be in your benefit to choose something that's going to give you stuff not typical to that, like maybe War Domain or Tempest Domain. So I'm going to give you some, or better yet, if you want to be more damagey, choose the Light Domain and get yourself access to all those fire spells, then use your spells known to grab cleric spells, and you have a decent mix of both without having to worry too much about it. Just looking at the Wild Soul Sorcerer here, just trying to figure out if I would add a different 5th level spell. I don't know, my gut is kind of leaning towards Animate Objects for the Wild Sorcerer, because I think that's kind of funky and weird. Or Modify Memory could be interesting. But yes, Mislead is a 5th level spell, and it is not on the Sorcerer spell list, so that would be one that I would add. You could always go crazy and add, like, Reincarnate. Seems like a random thing for a Wild Magic Sorcerer to have, but you get the point. You can kind of go all over the place with it. Let's move on. Shadow Sorcerer. We have Fog Cloud, Disguise Self, Shadow Blade, Blindness, Deafness, Animate Dead, Gaseous Form, Shadow of Moil, Evard's Black Tentacles, Negative Energy Flood, and Dance Macabre. So that's a great list of spells. Whether or not they fit 100% with the Shadow Sorcerer, I like, Shadow Blade, right? I mean, they can kind of do darkness already, and they have dark vision, so there's no reason to give them those. Fog Cloud can kind of almost be like a darkness spell. Shadow of Moil is a great choice. Evard's Black Tentacles, again, I don't think a sorcerer spell and a good kind of inky black tentacle scenario. Negative Energy Flood, Dance Macabre, good stuff. things you might possibly want to add in here on top of this, I'm not really sure. I kind of like where things are at. I don't know. I don't really have too much more. You could add some more of like the warlock stuff, like the Hadar spells, Arms of Hadar or Hunger of Hadar, but I think that fits more the Aberrant Mind sorcerer, not so much the Shadow. So I'm actually okay with this list. And lastly, Storm Sorcerer, Thunderwave, Featherfall, Warding Wind, Gust of Wind, Call Lightning, Thunderstep, Storm Sphere, Freedom of Movement, Control Winds, and Wrath of Nature. So here we had Fog Cloud and Thunderwave. This one gave Featherfall. It could go either way. Gust of Wind and Levitate. We have Gust of Wind and Warding Wind. So either way. And this we had Call Lightning and Sleet Storm. Thunderstep's a better fit because Thunderstep didn't exist when the original Unearthed Arcana came out, so I would keep that. This had Ice Storm and Conjure Minor Elementals. Freedom of Movement, I like that. I think it kind of fits with the kind of flowy air nature. And I don't know if Storm Sphere was an option either, so that probably makes sense. And then Control Winds and Wrath of Nature. Wrath of Nature definitely wasn't a spell when that was an option as well. So this, I would say, yeah, I would agree with pretty much. I made my couple of points there, but I do think that this is what I would do now. My new thoughts would be, I still think the sorcerer needs some sort of recharge mechanic for, I think the idea of the short rest recharge for the sorcerer to get sorcery points back is good. Yes, I did see your points about, well, that kind of negates their capstone ability, which gives them 4 back when they start an initiative. So what? Why can't they have both? I think that that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's the same thing along the lines, like I said, a Battle Master Fighter has a whole bunch more. I don't know. Let me flip it this way, right? A wizard gets signature spells at high levels where they can just cast spells without even spending spell slots at all. Sorcerers don't get anything close to that unless you're going to go with the route of, again, we're converting metamag or sorcery points into spell slots. Then I guess you could argue it works that way, but you're still expending a resource, whereas a higher level wizard just has spells they can just do for freezies, and sorcerers will never get that. So I still encourage the short rest mechanic, short rest recharge mechanic. You don't have to do that, but I think at the very least, these kind of origin spells where the sorcerer gets expanded spells based on what they choose, I think that is the way to go rather than the different spells known progression. Go with that. I think that will definitely make your sorcerers in your games feel a lot stronger and have an opportunity to really pick maybe those options you wouldn't normally pick, because you're like, okay, well, I have all of these cool spells based on my origin. Now I can choose to take something that's maybe not so heavily focused on damage or specifically tied to what my abilities are, because my origin spells do that, and now I can do some other fun things with it. So that's where I would go. I did also hear someone suggest the idea of swappable meta magics, which I thought was an interesting concept, and I'd love to hear what you guys think. Was basically like once when you take a long rest, essentially preparing. One suggestion was being able to swap your meta magics when you level up, like you would with spells known, changing those out. And another option was being able to essentially prepare your meta magics. So like if you have 3 meta magic uses, when you go to sleep and take a long rest and wake up, you could choose which 3 meta magics, let's say it's 3 at that point. You could wake up and choose which 3 meta magics you wanted to have for the day. That's an interesting concept as well. Another way to spin it would be to make a feat where you get to expand, kind of like a martial adept feat, where you get to add another meta magic option, and you get something, you have +1 charisma, and choose one of the sorcerer's meta magic options. You can do this 1 time per long rest, and then anybody could get that feat. Or if you already have meta magics, you can use your sorcery points as normal. Similar to how the martial adept, anybody can get the ability, those the maneuvers, but if you already have them, it just adds to your existing pool. That would be some other option you could look at. So let me know what you guys think of this video, guys. Like I said, I didn't plan to return to the sorcerer as soon as I have, but I think that since we saw it in the Unearthed Arcana, again, it seems like Wizards is thinking about adding in these ideas of the origin spells. However, my only worry is, similar to what I've heard in the past from people at Wizards, they'll do this with new Sorceress Origins going forward, and they won't go back and add them into the old ones because that's just seems to be their philosophy. As we saw with the Ranger, give all the new Rangers one spell per level, don't go back and give it to the Hunter and the Beastmaster. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you like this video and you want to see more stuff from me, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Throw a thumbs up on this video if you do like it. And I do stream on Twitch every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday evening. So if you'd like to see that, there's a link in the description. We're trying to hit 3,000 so we can make some new content for you guys. So if you like that, be sure to go over there and subscribe. Or follow. You don't have to subscribe if you don't want to, though it is September on Twitch. So who knows? Anyway, I'll see you next time.